Nompo, you would know that there is breaking news that just came in, and these are matters that are related to the IEC, the Independent Electoral Commission. And of course, if you don't know, and you're a viewer of the SABC, news coming in that the acting Chief Justice, Mr. Raymond Zondo, has set down the 20th of August to hear the IEC's application to have the October polls deferred to February next year. Now, we know that the Democratic Alliance had actually held a press conference on the very same issue today, and they are opposing the IEC's application. Of course, today is the final day for political parties or those who are wishing to oppose this application to actually, get their applications in at the Constitutional Court. The DA is not the only political party that is opposing the IEC's application, but of course the African Transformation Movement is as well. And of course, we know that they filed their papers last week. But to talk to me further about this issue, I'm joined by the Democratic Alliance leader, Mr. John Steenhuisen. Always a pleasure talking to you. I know you're very cold. You've been here the entire day. But I mean, just tell us about your application to oppose the IEC.
Well, we're very concerned at the precedent that's been set here for our democracy, that you can simply delay an election because it's not suitable to a government at that particular time. We believe that there's conflicting scientific advice. Some saying that we could potentially have a fourth wave in January, February next year, rendering it impossible to have an election there. One of the key guarantees of the Constitution and one of the key defining factors of a democracy are regular elections. And the Constitution is very clear that there is a period when elections take place, and it may not be longer than 90 days after the anniversary of the previous election. I don't know what the IEC are expecting the court to do. It's not the Constitutional Court's job to suspend the Constitution. It's their job to uphold the Constitution. And I think what's happened here is that we've had the IEC and ANC and other political parties who right from the very beginning didn't want this election to happen in October and have now boxed themselves into a corner where they're now trying to make it the court's problem. And it's very interesting to see what the court has to say.
But Mr. Steenhuisen, I mean, some people would argue that the lives of people actually come first. I mean, we're living in unprecedented times right now, and you just cited scientific evidence. I mean, listening to the likes of Dr. Dessou saying that holding the elections in October might actually just spark a fourth wave. Are you not concerned about that?
Well, of course, COVID's going to be with us for many years to come. We know that the vaccination program is way behind, that the herd immunity target is way off. We can't delay our democratic processes, but many other countries around the world and in the continent of Africa have had successful elections during much stronger periods of the COVID-19. The scientists say October will be a lull. The December period, I think, is already going to be a risk in terms of the holiday season. I think we should have the elections, and I think that we should not compromise our democracy just because the governing party doesn't want to have an election.
Okay. Well, Mr. Steenhuisen, my time is up with you. I'll just cross over back to my colleague Mzwandi Lembeche. Of course, we'll go back to the business of the day and indicate what actually happened inside the commission. As you know, that the president was on the hot seat. Mzwandi, just tell us more about the president's evidence that he gave in today. We know that a lot of issues actually came up today.
It was actually interesting today, particularly because we heard for the first time that the president at some point even thought about resigning, because he said he hadn't been aware of the state capture taking place. But of course, as the media and everyone else started talking about it, and then he started to see, and then of course the issue of the Gupta leaks, and then he mentioned the issue of Nhlanhla Nene being fired and being replaced by Des van Rooyen. I think that's where he said he wanted to resign. But then he said he had a number of options, even to you, Nompo, a number of options that he had in terms of what to do given the graveness of the situation. He basically said, so he could have walked away, but if he had walked away, so he wouldn't be able to effect the kind of changes that he is now able to do by virtue of him then staying on. That is why he even took a decision that he will contest the elections. Of course, he's the president now. And from what we were speaking about earlier, Nompu, that the president really basically saying the issue of the state capture is the issue that he was as surprised as everyone else regarding what was happening. You'd even remember, I mean, his just recent evidence now, talking about Brian Molefe. He's been saying, as much as I think in the people's minds, everyone thinks Brian Molefe was someone who was only preferred by the former president, but he actually is saying he is the one who proposed the name because he knew his capabilities. So this goes much, much deeper. And of course, the issues relating to ESCOM, where he is said to have had his interest, he's rebutted that, saying he went to the president then to say, I'm resigning from all my positions so that there is no conflict of interest. So it's quite interesting, Nompu. We're still in very early days in terms of his evidence, but he will continue after lunch. It's lunch now, and there are so many questions that the legal team wants to pose.
Thanks very much, Ms. Wandile Mbete there. He's our political editor, and Natasha Piri, our political reporter.